Oh, good day to you, friends. Seamus here. Thank you for joining me on this very special day because today is January 25th, and to my Scottish kith and kin around the world, January 25th is the day set aside to honor the immortal memory of our famous poet laureate, Mr. Robbie Burns. Now, no matter where you are and what culture you may celebrate, you're probably familiar with Burns. If you've ever sang that song, Auld Lang Syne, on New Year's Eve, that's his work, and he wrote many hundreds of poems over the course of his life. One that's not as well known, except to the Scots community, is something called An Address to the Haggis, where he wrote basically a love song to Scotland's national dish, the haggis, which is much misunderstood, much maligned, and much, well, that's a story for another time. But today we're going to answer a question which I have been asked many times. In all my years doing Scottish living history events and Highland games and so on, many's the time I've had people come to me and say, if the haggis is so important to the Scots, then why can't we ever see them in the wild? And friends, today I will answer that mystery for you. See, here's something that you need to know. The haggis is a truly, genuinely, old worldly, magical, mystical beastie of the great highlands of Scotland. They spend their whole lives living up in the hills and dales, the bens and glens, if you will, the mountainsides of the great Highland line, and spending their whole lives on the hillside. Over the generations, they have changed a bit. They've adapted to their environment. You might even say they evolved such that on one side of their body, their legs are longer than on the other side. Now, you might seem this odd, but bear with me and I'll explain. You see, the lady haggai, and haggai is the appropriate singular form of haggis, the lady haggai have their longer legs on the left side. And the gentleman haggai, they have their longer legs on the right side. But what this means now is that with one leg longer, they can stand upright on the side of the mountain. Because, you know, if you stood on the side of the mountain with equal legs, you'd lean to one side or the other and tip over and roll down the mountains, and then there wouldn't be any haggis at all. But the ladies have the longer legs on the left, which let them walk around the mountain sunwise, clockwise, you might say, proper like, working their way around to the right as they go up and back down the mountain. Well, the gentlemen with their longer legs on the right, that lets them work their way around the mountain, counterclockwise, or widdershins, as we might say. So they go up and down the mountain the other way. Now, that's all well and good, except for one particular problem. You see, that means that the ladies are all going this way, and the gentlemen are all going this way. And that means, of course, that the men and the ladies are going in entirely opposite directions. And as much as they might like each other, and they might pass a wink as they go by, and, hey, how are you doing? You're looking good, whatever. It doesn't matter, because when they meet on the mountainside, they're always nose to nose. And, when spring comes around and the haggis is an adult and mature and looking for some soft company, they're meeting nose to nose, and they simply can't facilitate the necessary the thing that needs to be. They can't make babies, is what I'm trying to say to you. And the difficulty with that, of course, is that greatly reduces the population if there's no new babies. There is one way that this might work, but sadly the haggis are not the wisest animals in the wilds of Scotland, and it takes them many, many years to realize that if they both just slowly make their way down slope towards the bottom of the mountainside, the ladies walking with the sun and the gentlemen walking against, and they both make their way down to the bottom of the mountain, they'll be on the nice slow slope that takes them down to a convenient loch, a lake for you folks that only speak the English. And in the loch, of course, they can swim and they can float and they can be however they wish to be. So the haggis can work their way down the mountain this way, and the gentlemen can work their way down the mountain that way, and they can meet at the side of the loch and paddle their little way out into the water. And when they're afloat in the water and can move however they want, then they can move however they want, and one thing leads to another, and you have wee little baby haggai being born later on in the summertime. Well, the difficulty, though, is that most of the gentlemen haggis don't figure out until much later in life that they only have to make their way down to the shoreline where the lady haggai are waiting rather impatiently for a gentleman caller, and they can get on with things. And because of that, they might only have one, maybe two chances in their whole life to perpetuate the species, as it were. And that, friends, is exactly why it's very, very rare to see a great wild haggis in the wild. I thank you for listening to this. It's an entirely silly story. I just wanted to share something from my culture with you on this very important day where we celebrate Robbie Burns. If you are celebrating tonight, if you were at a Burns supper this past weekend or this coming weekend, or maybe even tonight, if you're enjoying some tasty haggis for supper, don't tell your non-Scots friends where you found it. But anyway, I appreciate you being here. Take good care of yourselves and to each other, and we will see you soon. Cheers. Oh, over the hills I go, do-do.